We will be talking about the issue of opinion polls with just 5 days to go. Some were released yesterday, very different numbers we are getting. We seek to understand why the figures are different, what kind of methodology were used, and what impact will this have on the Kenyan electorate with just 5 days to go. Remember, just about 2 weeks ago, the undecided voters were about 5%, and now it's gone down to 2.2%. So the latest opinion polls are placing both President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga neck to neck in the race to State House. Polling firms Ipsos and Infotrack results from the latest opinion polls show very different figures, but our in-house researcher, Jewel Kiringi, will take us through some of these figures just before we get to that conversations with the men who are at the center of the research firms in the country that are conducting this opinion polls. Jewel, always a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you very much, Akisa.
Yes.
So today we'll take a look at the Ipsos poll that was released yesterday. That was basically showing that President Uhuru Kenyatta is leading the presidential race with 47%, and followed closely by Honorable Raila Odinga at 44%. Now, 2 weeks earlier, Ipsos had also released another poll that showed President Uhuru Kenyatta at 47% and Raila Odinga at 43%.
Yes.
Now, the undecided remained at 5%. So what we can tell from these results is President Uhuru Kenyatta maintained his share of support, though Honorable Raila Odinga has gained 1 percentage point from the last 2 weeks.
That's according to Ipsos?
That's according to Ipsos.
Okay.
But then Infotrack also released another opinion poll yesterday, and this one is slightly different, where we have President Uhuru Kenyatta polling at 48% against Honorable Raila Odinga's 49%. Now, 2 weeks earlier, Infotrack showed that President Uhuru Kenyatta had 46% against Honorable Raila Odinga's 47%. Now, what's interesting about this particular poll by Infotrack is the fact that the undecided voters have gone significantly lower.
In just about 2 weeks.
In just about 2 weeks, yes. So that can basically articulate why we are seeing these differences in the percentage points. Now, from these polls, we can infer that for any one of the candidates, that being President Uhuru Kenyatta and Honorable Raila Odinga, to win this race, then they need to win over the undecided voters, because we can see we have a very small margin up to the 50% plus 1 vote mark. Another thing will be which of these candidates manages to win over their supporters from one camp to another, as well as the turnout of the particular strongholds. From the if you compare the two, we have President Uhuru Kenyatta at 47% by Ipsos and Infotrack at 48%, while we have Honorable Raila Odinga at 44% of Ipsos against Infotrack's 49%. For Ipsos, they say the undecided voters remain at 5%, but then Infotrack shows at 2.2%. So what we can tell also from the Infotrack poll is they say President Uhuru Kenyatta's strongholds are in Central Province, Northeastern Province, and Rift Valley. While Honorable Raila Odinga has support in all the remaining 5 regions, which are basically Nyanza, Coast, Eastern, Western, and Nairobi. So
there's one question that comes up every time we see these polls and on Kenyans' minds. Is there a chance that any of the candidates will get to the 50% of the national vote plus 1?
Yes, I think based on the undecided, and that is one thing that both pollsters agree on, they feel that there will be no runoff to this election, and that by the time August 8th comes here, all these undecided voters will have put their vote behind one of the two.
They will have made up their mind, but it's like 5 days.
Exactly. and interesting also to add, there was a research that was done recently by Twaweza East Africa, and basically checking what is the most serious problem affecting Kenyans today. And interesting also to point out, the high cost of living in 2015 was only polling at 19%, but this year it's at 40%. So we can tell that Kenyans are making largely their voting decisions based on what they feel each of these candidates will do about the economy. In comparison to corruption, that was at 31% in 2015, but is now only paltry 10%.
All right, and gladly we have Victor Ateng here from Twaweza, so we will be seeing whether from their polls, some of these reasons that Kenya say are the biggest problems, whether they affect these numbers we're getting from opinion polls. Jewel, always a pleasure to have you here as we take a look at the numbers with just 5 days and 5 nights to the general election. Well, my panel is ready as well, so we could as well get into that particular discussion on opinion polls and what we expect, what impact do they have on our voters. I'll start with the one on my immediate left. We have Raphael Mulwa, who is the research director at Infotruck. Thank you very much. We have Victor Ateng from Twaweza, East Africa, as well as Kevin Osido from the County Governance Watch. Gentlemen, thank you for coming in. I'll start with you, Victor, because Joel has mentioned something about the issues that Kenyans say are the biggest and whether you think they affect how they are polling in these opinion polls.
Yes, thank you so much, Akisa. Actually, you will be surprised that these issues may not actually direct voters towards the direction they're taking, because analysis based on Jubilee supporters and NASA supporters show that they differ on these two issues. So, and something else which we have done internally shows that actually there is no significance between the economy, the fighting corruption in government, and creation of jobs as having a really big factor. But what they are actually done is helped in terms of mobilizing. So if I have loyalty towards NASA, because of ethnic royalty or ethnicity or something to do with regionalism, then it has helped me, it gives me good reason to support them. So that when I'm asked really, why are you in support of Jubilee or NASA, then I will say, you know, I support Jubilee because it has improved the infrastructure. But something that we have done internally, an analysis that we have done, because ours is a panel, so we have been able to tell, using at least data from 3 or 4 waves, asking the same questions about their satisfaction in terms of country direction with the economy, fighting corruption in government, creation of jobs, security, and addressing challenges in education. And it tells us that there is no significance at no point, because there are people who are switching their views in between, and it has nothing to do with those. But what it probably has done, which is what we are still trying to establish, is the fact that this could have actually helped in mobilizing the people to think towards their political parties. So that's what we see. All right. But they have remained. So, but the other thing which is important to highlight is the fact that when Kenyans are responding to the question of what is the most serious problem facing the country, they are telling you things that they are experiencing. But that does not mean it will change who they support.
Who they will support.
Yeah, so they're responding to the day-to-day activities or the day-to-day situations in the country. We saw that at some point inflation in the country was almost 12%. Yes. So if you did a poll at that particular time, they were saying the high cost of living is a very...
And probably why we are getting Kenyans polling that most of them would say, and a big number of them would say, the country is heading towards the wrong direction, but President Uhuru Kenyatta would still have a large number of support. Would you want to react to that, Raphael?
Yeah, what I can say, Kenyan politics is mainly based on tribal considerations. That's why a supporter for Uhuru in Rift Valley or Central will definitely vote for Uhuru, even if the economy is not doing right. So there are those who still make consideration of campaign policies for the different candidates, but still tribal considerations come first. Yes.
Kevin?
Akisa, opinion polls, they are opinions. And for Kenya and where we are headed right now, especially regarding this election, is really not, I would say, is not probably issue-based. Because if you look at what's happening and from these 2 main opinion poll institutions, you'll realize that the gap is also this minimal. And this means that in my view, Kenyans are much more inclined to who I support because of my background, not necessarily geared towards the issues that they are addressing or what they want to do, but it's about who are they, in the sense that can I be able to relate to them insofar as what my background is? And that also is more or less swingy, because if you look at the 2.2, this is about 418 or about 430,000 people who probably think that mine is not necessarily about the last names of the candidates or their ethnic backgrounds or cocoons, but really about the issues. And that is why I would relate opinion polls to, again, presidential debates and other platforms, because these are platforms or arenas that are therefore put forward for candidates to be able to come and bring out the issues so that people can be able to relate the issues to the candidates and therefore more or less determine how they are going to vote. But in Kenya right now, and this is not just happening at the national level, but even at the county level, because even at the counties, we have people who are running to be governors. And if you ask people why they want to vote to them, even up to the level of MCAs, it is really not about what they've been able to do or what they want to do, but it's about, can I be able to identify how closely linked to this person I am.
Is this what we were told is called the homeboy mentality among Kenyans?
Precisely.
Of course, we will be asking. Yes. The opinion polls have been getting very different figures for the past few weeks, and as we draw closer to the general election, the figures are still as different as they can. Of course, the gaps are not very big, but Kenyans are wondering if the methodology is the same, if the research system is the same. Why are we getting different results as far as the presidential candidates are concerned, Raphael?
Yeah, I can't talk much of the other pollster, but for InfoTrack, we tried as much as possible to get an answer from the undecided voters. That's compared to Ipsos, you can see our undecided voters has gone down to 2%, compared to their 5%. So in case of an undecided voter, we were going further to ask if you have to make a decision and assume this is the polling booth, whom will you vote against among the following. That's why we tried to pose the question, and because those undecided voters definitely will vote on Tuesday. Yes.
So is that the reason why the number has gone down from 5% to 2%?
Yes.
Have you previously asked that question, that if you really had to vote and you were on the voting booth, who would you vote for? Or is it the first time since we started polling this election period that you asked that question as InfoTrack?
Yeah, this is the first time we have asked it. Bearing in mind this was our last opinion poll for these elections. So we had to really get the numbers right for which side they are likely to be inclined to. Yes.
Victor, when the numbers are as different as they come, is there any possibility that it could change the minds of voters, or just what impact would they have on the Kenyan voter 5 days from now?
Well, that's the same as asking if opinion polls influence the way people vote. And the answer is there's no research that shows that they actually do. So they don't. They will not have an impact because according to the poll released by Ipsos, InfoTrack, we had 49-48, which means over 95% of the people have made a decision. Now, the issue, of the undecided is not the fact that somebody does not know the candidate. So that's one. They have a candidate. Within the 400,000 that of the 2.2% that Raphael is talking about, we have people who know who they are going to vote for. But at the time of the interview, they are shy in terms of giving you a name. They are hesitant because they don't think it's really important. So really, it's not about being undecided at the time of the polling. On the polling day, they will actually probably be the first people to go out to vote. Yeah, exactly. So you might be surprised they are among the first few people voting and voting for the 6th position. So they will vote for a presidential candidate. The other reason could be because they're still being persuaded by one or two issues. Now, and that probably is an indication that needs more research, because we could be thinking about an issue-based country as having about 19 million, yet it is just less than 200,000 people that focus on issues. So again, there is that proportion that probably is still thinking about. I spoke with someone yesterday, and what she told me is that she's still undecided. And this is somebody who is a professional, who is exposed, who is mature. So I think for her, the main issue is what is most important for us as a nation. But there are not so many in the country, as I've told you earlier. So again, and I like the way InfoTrack decided to do it this time around. I only wish Ipsos had done the same in terms of pressing them hard.
So that we take a look at the numbers.
Yes,
as well.
Because as the days get fewer, people are narrowing down to exactly what they're going to do. Because, and if you ask this question after the election, probably a week after, the undecided will jump from 2.2 or 5% to probably 30 or 45%. I know you'll probably be chased away in some locations because people will be telling you, we are not interested in talking about the general election. We just came from one. Yeah.
But Kevin, you deal a lot with people, especially down other counties. When we talk about not being an issue-based and not being an issue-based electorate, there's so many things that have happened in the past week. We had the presidential debate. We've had developments from the IEBC and even on the campaign trail. What really could influence how the voter will vote or even change their minds as we head into the elections on 8th?
So many things, in my view, and the first thing that probably I need to pick at this point is assumptions that opinion polls probably adhere to. Because looking at these numbers and engaging with people at the county level, there are lots of assumptions, plenty of them, and one of them is probably the voter turnout. We're talking about 19.2 to 5 million voters. But if you, and we pray that God gives us the grace and the life to be here again after elections, and then we look at the number of votes that will be cast, they probably will be much more lower than what we expect. That is at the first level. So looking at the undecided voters, in my view, it is as good as they do not exist, because we are telling this and looking at it from the number of candidates, I mean the number of votes that IEBC is anticipating vis-a-vis the number of votes that are going to be cast, which is ultimately what is going to determine what who is going to be the president of the Republic of Kenya. That is one. Number two is issues, and this is serious. And if you look at counties, and I've been receiving InfoTrack results vis-a-vis Sinovet, they've taken the task to even do county opinions, and because issues that affect Kenyans are not standard, the things that people in Turkana are grappling with are not the same as the things that people in Siaya or Machakos or Nairobi here or Mandera or Kilifi are grappling with. And those are things that are going to push people to be able to go out there to either vote or not. The third thing is the involvement of the presidential candidates, because these counties are zoned off or mapped out for specific alliances or coalitions. And that is also going to determine the total numbers vis-a-vis the 50% plus one Akisa. And so opinion pollsters should be able to go beyond just talking to people and counting numbers, because Kenyans vote, one, from an ethnic-based perspective or cocoon in that manner, and two is we haven't gotten to the level of looking at what are our issues, and these issues are varied from one corner to another within the context.
Thank you. Kevin Osido, this is executive producer, the County Governance Watch, executive director of the County Governance Watch. We have Victor Ateng from Toweza East Africa, programs director of Sauti za Wananchi, as well as Raphael Mulwa, the research director at InfoTrack. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming in. Well, in the second hour of this edition of Kivumbi 2017, my colleague Abby Agina will be joining us from the city center with the latest business updates, and I'll also be speaking to Patrick Obath from the Kenya Daima initiative by the business community to observe peace during this elections period. Don't go too far. This is Kivumbi 2017.